And there we are. We're live. You're about to come on with me, Monica Perez. And when you come on, I've got a question.
Right on.
Monica, what in the world is going on in the great United States of America, especially in Minneapolis? What's happening with them? What do you think is happening?
I think that this is a big operation that has a lot of agenda items that are going to play out, including bringing the federal government in at the local level, offsetting or overwhelming their police. I think there's been a movement in this country for a long time from the top to nationalize the police in actual fact or just de facto, like it's just going to be that way. I think this is going to have a lot of implications. And there's a lot of stuff in the news that makes it sound like there's some stuff going on behind the scenes, anarchists and Antifa and who's starting the fires. And it's just a lot of stuff to unpack with this one. And I think the implications are going to be big agenda policy items.
Well, and me and you both have been reading the headlines. We've both seen the newscast where it's, a lot of the people aren't from here, but if we go back and look at the last, you can pinpoint the unrest, the riots or the protests, whatever you want to call them, over the last 10 years. I say it's at least 10 years. We've heard this before. A lot of the people who are protesting are not from these communities. At least that's what we've heard. I don't know if it's ever proven, but that's what we've heard.
I think that that's true.
Yeah.
I think it's true. And I think it's not only useful, but it's not only useful to have an organized movement behind this stuff for the reasons that I'm happy to lay out for you, but now they're making the actual conspiracy theory that the mainstream media is propagating. And that's a conspiracy theory that there are anarchists or Antifa or out-of-towners coming in somehow organized to make local people look bad, to make local people look like they're reacting violently, burning down their own towns like they did in the Rodney King riots. I think there has to be something to the fact that information is being broadcast on the mainstream media.
Well, and you and I usually come from news stories from different angles, and then we agree on a lot of stuff in the middle, and then we take away different things. I think I don't know what happened to us, the common sense of the people. I don't know what happened, because we know whether you think the media is right-wing or left-wing. We know the media feeds us stories. We know the media hands us what they want us to see. And then we respond just like they expect us to. So when we see stories like this, I wish we would, first of all, let me just say this, whatever happens down the road, it was horrible. It was criminal. It was just there's zero justification. Now, I don't know if it was based off race. I don't know if that guy's just an asshole in life. I don't know if he was a poorly trained cop. I don't know any of those things. What I know is there should be consequences and punishments for what he did. With all that being said, the media, I think, goes around the world, picks out stories that they know fits the narrative of their policy, and then they shove it in front of us. And then we react. And I think that's the way it is.
And I think they take these crises, they know what to do with them, they're waiting for them. I would go further and say they create them. This Chauvin guy, first of all, his name is crazy. It means patriotic, prejudiced. It's just Chauvin is chauvinist. It's a crazy name, but it looks like it's his real name, because I was trying to look into his backstory, and he had numerous other incidents in the past, which I didn't realize was being floated out. I expected it to be floated out eventually. So here's a guy who has a history where he got away with it all the time. And I don't even know.
But see, before we even go down the backstory, though, and this is where I think we fall into the trap, especially with social media, because before there's a backstory, before anything comes out, we see what they put in front of us, and we go to our group huddle and we say, oh, and then we leave the group huddle, and this is our marching orders. This is our chant. We either start making excuses or we start putting everything into one big bucket. And I just, when I grew up, my mom and dad taught me, don't judge a book by the cover, wait till you know all the facts, things like that. And now all that's out the window. We see a picture and we judge it.
Well, I think the dialectic that they want us to go and huddle over is, at this point, was it a race thing or was it a cop thing? I don't think anybody says it looks legit. There might be some body cam stuff that makes that a little bit of ambiguity there. But either way you look at it,
it doesn't matter. It's wrong. Whatever happened, whether it's
that's why
racist
I
or
think
not.
I've been noticing for a really long time that they've allowed us to be extremely critical of the cops. And that's something weird. Some people defend them and some people are very critical of them. And I have thought for a long time, especially under Obama, and it hasn't occurred to me in this administration until now, that there has been an agenda on the books. I've done shows on it where they want to nationalize the police. They want to have a national police. And for them, the reason you don't want local police is if you are really corrupt and you want to impose laws at the federal level that have no business being there because of the 10th Amendment, then a lot of times they will run into cops who kind of bust pedophile rings or something. I think Denny Hastert, maybe he was the Speaker of the House. He was a pedophile and he was corrupt. And I think he got in trouble because local cops, I think, or at least it's plausible that local cops aren't in on that stuff and they'll blow the whistle. So if you control the police if you have a federal force, you don't have that same kind of checks and balances. And I think they've wanted to get that in hand for a long time. And I think they've used the kind of black versus blue movement to promote that, even though that's not the answer.
So when you say to federalize the police, are you hearing some of the things that the administration is saying that hints to that?
I didn't have time to do the homework. I wouldn't be surprised if they were, but I noticed it immediately yesterday when Trump said, I'm going to send the National Guard in.
That's what I was referring to.
Yeah. So that's a posse comitatus thing, I think, that's a federal. Is the National Guard, is it considered military? I guess it's for domestic use.
Yeah, it's military.
But are they allowed? I didn't do my homework on how it's supposed to work. Is it a state thing? Because the federal government can't send the army to suppress, I don't think.
Well, I've got some veteran buddies that are probably listening to this, and they can jump in here.
Tell us.
Yeah.
Hi, Daryl.
Well, yeah, and hello,
Daryl.
Yeah, Daryl. There's two of them by Daryl. I saw two comments. But either way, once you start having, though, I brought this up last week with me and you about the churches. You remember when Trump, who, by the way, before said, governors, either open them up or I'll override you. And I was like, I don't think you can. I don't think that's the way it's supposed to go. So when you said this before you came on, federalizing the police, my radar went up. And I was like, yeah, that's the kind of we don't want that. We don't want.
I think
that.
the way they'll do it, I just have a feeling what they've been doing lately is they just get the mayors or they get the police chiefs. That's what I didn't like about Sheriff Israel in Parkland, is that he was part of an international fraternity of cops. He went to DC to train with the FBI to be a cop. So they've already set up these networks where these guys answer to a higher power, a higher order. It's kind of like a matrix, funny enough. But have you ever seen a corporation that's run as a matrix rather than a hierarchy? Yeah. You have different loyalties. It's not strictly like this. So I feel like the way they're looking at mayors have international organizations. Michelle Obama is coordinating with mayors about how to run voting. When Trump pulled out of the climate accord, the mayors said, oh, we're just going to go straight to The Hague or wherever. I've been noticing this trend towards plugging localities into the higher government for a long time. And I see it even with the executive order about Twitter that Trump put out. He's saying they're putting out model legislation for states' attorneys general to implement because they really can't push it down. Every law is not permitted. Like a federal, there is some restraints that the 10th Amendment is still respected to some extent. And if you can't get Congress to push it all down, if you get the attorneys general, that's what Barr is doing with what's called Project Guardian. He's just trying to get cops at every level to obey what he tells them to obey, and state legislatures to put in the laws that they'd like Congress to be able to do, but they can't. So I feel like they will probably just go in directly to the police chiefs, give them, they're actually, Obama wrote the model, wrote the kind of plan for 21st century policing that my guess is they're going to use as a framework to get everybody on board to do the same kind of training, the same kind of reactions, and maybe even answer to them. Like directly have to answer to them. Maybe the police chiefs will have to get appointed or approved by the feds. I just feel like it's going to be I think it's more likely to be a backdoor thing, but I think that's what's happening.
Well, I've got, you sent me all these tweets that we can look at, and I'm going to pull Franny. Let's do this first, because I've got all the...
Franny's giving us the answer. That's great. Can I read it?
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
Franny says the National Guard is the only United States military force that operates across both state and federal responses, leveraging state active duty, full-time, yes, state, that's what I was wondering. I think it is a state thing. Full-time National Guard duty and active duty, while SAD, state active duty, Title 32 and Title 10 are different statuses and roles. They provide mutually supporting capability. That is really, really interesting. I noticed this with the proposal for a North American Union that William Weld and Heidi Cruz and a bunch of people at the CFR proposed a while back that I think the USMCA in part fulfills. They wanted interoperability of police and military across the borders in the U.S., in North America. And a big problem with that is you can take people from Mexico and have them enforce the laws here without that sense of loyalty or really understanding the limits that law enforcement has here. It's a tricky way to flip things around, and it's also a tricky way to get around our rules. But I would also say we should have militias. The Second Amendment folks who ignore the militia stuff because they don't want to play into the left-wing argument that we only need guns for militias and we don't have militias. That's how the left has neutralized the real meaning of the Second Amendment, which is not only do we need guns, we need to be organized so that we can use them. The militias are very important, and that we wouldn't have any of this nonsense if you had militias. Oh, I can't hear you, my dear. Why can't I hear you, Clint? Hold. I'm holding. Please hold. Why would I not be able to hear you, dear? Is it me or is it you? Well, you can go on without me.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Let me see if we're still live on Facebook. I'm hoping we are, because I kind of restarted it. So if we're doing good. Audience can't hear him either. How about now? Franny, can you hear me now?
Well, I can hear you.
Well, then there we go. There we go. I think we're back. I don't know what happened there for a second.
Right on.
My microphone just disappeared. I was like, huh, that's not good. Okay, so let's jump back into it. I'm assuming everybody can hear me until somebody tells me they can't. Okay, yes, thank you. Thank you, Franny. Franny's awesome. I don't know what you pay her, but it's not enough.
She is a friend of the show, and she absolutely 100% supports everything that I do. She's a gem.
Well, technology happens sometimes. Yes, sabotage. It's 100% because we're changing the world one comment at a time. So let's pull that comment down, because I have quite a few things that you sent me. Last week I had stuff for you. Remember, I sent you an email.
Well, it seemed to me that you were very busy this week, so I did the courtesy of pulling some tweets that I thought might get your goat.
You did,
but I didn't tweet them for that reason. I only went over them. I started from our last show and I went through all the tweets. Since then, I was going to give myself an upper limit of 10. So that you could to take the weight off of your shoulders. You
did great. I appreciate it. Thank you, David, by the way, for telling me we're back. I appreciate that. And I apologize to everybody. It happens, especially when you're live. Before I get in your tweets, though, I have a couple of questions about things that I saw. Because remember, go.
You're going to get all up in my tweets?
That sounded inappropriate. I sound like
you just said before I get into your tweets. Okay.
Anyway, sorry.
I got you.
Well, because things happen during the week, and remember, this is designed to send people to your podcast page and mine too, but thepropreport.com and the propaganda report, right?
Yes. So I'll tell what I do in case people don't know. I used to have a lot of people on Facebook who know me from the WSB show. And
Right.
what they don't realize maybe is that I have a daily podcast now with Binkley, who is my producer on the WSB show. He's my co-host now. It's 30 minutes every day of news of the day from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice. And we also have a Patreon program where we do an extra 15 minutes every day for patrons. So you can go to patreon.com/propaganda report, or you can go to thepropreport.com, or just find Propaganda Report on any of your podcasting feeds. But we don't get as deep on that. We actually hit basically 10 stories a day, rapid fire with commentary, but it's pretty intense. And we don't really have the time to go deep into the policy issues that you and I can get into.
I'll be honest, you're doing so much better at this because you brought up Patreon without me even prompting you. I have it written down to make sure you nailed it. Okay, what did you think? And again, I bring up things that I think are important, and you kind of poo-poo them sometimes because you're like, that's not the real issue. That's not the real issue. We pulled out of the WHO, the World Health Organization.
Yes.
Good, bad, or just one of those
great,
distractions?
of course. We should have nothing to do with that stuff. However, I do worry because the World Health Organization seems to me like the World Trade Organization, the ground zero for world governments. So the World Trade Organization, in my mind, is dated. So the people who want world government, global governance, whatever you want to call it, that isn't really working for them. So they're going to let Trump kind of destroy that, Brexit kind of destroy that, USMCA kind of destroy that. Then I think the USMCA is going to be the kind of hub, and the spokes will plug into that, whatever. There'll be a new manifestation of that. The World Health Organization looks to me like it was starting to become the center of the world government, because there was a recent symposium where the guy, I think from South Korea, I called him South Korea's moon, and someone said, don't they have the same moon that we have? It's like, yes. They have more moons than we do, actually.
Yes.
So South Korea's moon said the World Trade Organization, the World Health Organization should have more augmented policies, augmented information gathering recommendations and processes. And on top of that, it should have the teeth and the authority to implement them, even if a country does not allow it. So they want the World Health Organization to have the force to go into a country that doesn't want it and collect health information on the basis of world safety. So that's a world government, and it's based on a problem that is presented as something that can only be addressed on a global level. This was something that was in the report from Iron Mountain in the 60s. How do you keep people in line when there's no real threat of war? Since we have nukes, it's unlikely we're going to have a hot war that kills everybody. So how do we keep people really attached to their governments or something like that? So, and the idea is to get, if you want globalism, you need a global problem. And so they do environmentalism. Now they have the pandemic.
Yeah.
I don't like the World Health Organization, and it's corrupt
I
and
don't
dishonest.
I don't care for it either. And I think somehow, again, I go back to what I started with, the common sense part of it. We have to act like we're in a neighborhood, right? We have to act like we're part of a global community. Absolutely. But you still have to protect your house. You still have to have some sovereignty. You still have to have some sense of your culture and what your rules are. You are in this house. My dad used to tell me all this time, when you're in my house, my rules. You want to go to your house? It's your rules. And that.
But what if his rules are to release a deadly virus?
I guess that's my point. What I'm saying, as soon as, and that's where, when you live in the neighborhood, as soon as the stuff that you do starts affecting me, that is when it becomes my issue. That's the.
Yes. And here's what I would say. Because of how law and society has emerged since the agricultural revolution, let's say 10,000 years, it reflects the reality of human existence. So if you want to tell me that we have to change fundamentals because of terrorism or plagues or whatever, you're going to have to prove to me that what you're saying really is new and that bad. And this pandemic is not even a pandemic. There are not enough deaths. The net deaths are not up from last year.
Well, and so I guess
there's nothing to be afraid of.
I think we were kind of more in agreement on what I said than I may have communicated, because my point on that is everything is true that you're saying. And as long as, again, your house and my house, once it starts affecting me, I just think our sovereignty is getting challenged. And these doors, these efforts to do this test with WHO or this organization, this world organization, and they're just trying to find a way to where eventually, when we are so ingrained into it, now all of a sudden we've given up our rights as Americans to the world. And that's a dangerous place to be.
I think that part of the answer lies in the fact that we have an English system and not a French system. We are not what do they call it? Prior restraint, statutory. That's not what we do. We do case law, torts. So if someone is about to harm you or someone has harmed you, that's a case that we have a mechanism to address. And if it's urgent, you can do that, but it has to be real. It can't be theoretical, and it's not preemptive. And that's always works for us. And it will work now because there's nothing different.
I'm watching a documentary right now on Netflix. And when I'm watching it, I start to think about these conversations we've had. And it's on World War II. And so it's called the Evil Inner Circle of Hitler, something like that. And it's a documentary series. It's a docuseries. And it is, I was one of those things. I'm like, okay, I'll watch it. And now it's like crack for my brain. I can't.
What is the evil?
The evil part is their intent, how they end up going down.
And what, it's just road. A goal of killing people. That's the evil intent. And but why? Well, why are they doing it?
Well, it's that part I'll get to. That's
because pure evil as a bogeyman is not very helpful in understanding how it emerges. I have a book I left at home. It's called How to Kill 11 Million People, and it was about Hitler and the Holocaust. And it says, you just lie to them. But you have to see this emerge. Fascism is emerging in this country right now. And I'm not talking about white nationalism. I'm talking about the merger of public and private, the separation of the citizen from any access to production or liberty. I mean, it's emerging right now, and it's emerging because we're being told there are threats. There's a race war happening. There's a pandemic all breathing down our throats. There are terrorists. There's mass shootings. There's an opioid crisis. There's MS-13. And I mean, all these things that we're being told are necessary so that we have to lose all of our rights. I'm saying I need to... It's greed on their part. They're power hungry. Let's dig into what makes these people tick so we can see what they're doing and what their methods are.
Well, real quick, it's our fault. We're the consumer. We're eating the meal. If we stopped eating the meal and stopped believing them, they'd stop feeding us that. That's the way it goes. If we lay there and take it. But let me finish the one thought about the docuseries, because I'm watching it. And the reason I think of these conversations is a huge part, a major part in how they convinced a nation to move forward with these goals was the propaganda. I mean, it is. If you would love this docuseries, because all through the docuseries is how they slowly and methodically took over the print and the airwaves and the radio.
You know who they learned that from?
And they started taking stories and actually some were twisted as propaganda and some were completely fake. And to feed back to their people who had no way to fact check it, and they just consumed it. And next thing you know, a nation raises up and goes, absolutely, we should invade Poland.
I think you need to peel the onion back on that one a little bit, though, because World War I, the propaganda was on the side of the UK and the US. Germany really got the short end of the stick on that. And then in Poland, there were Germans who were being abused. That's why they invaded Poland. I'm not saying they were justified, but I'm saying that they learned that stuff from us. So to say they are evil, yes, they were evil. They had evil intent. They had evil processes and all of that.
I didn't say they were the only evil.
But you have to understand that when you violate your own tenets, like we are now, like we've done in the Middle East, you destabilize the system. You don't have the moral high ground. And then your enemy will then take that, or you will create enemies who will then follow your lead on what the rules are.
Well, and two, the reason that the Germans, so there's this incident when there's a radio station in German radio station that was attacked that they used as the impetus to go into Poland. Well, those soldiers they found that were dead were Polish soldiers that had killed some Germans. When in reality, what it was is the Germans had taken people out of concentration camps, killed them, put Polish uniforms on.
How do you know that? Because they told you it in the
Well,
documentary?
yeah, I mean, because
there's
I
a
wasn't
lot
there.
of, yeah, I understand, but there's a lot of, I'm not saying that the
I don't know.
Nazis weren't
I did
evil.
a lineage tree, and it was Bob, damn Bob, that was in Poland.
I'm just saying that that initial stuff, Hitler, totally evil. I'll give you that. He wanted to be friends with England for his own reasons of ego. And that Poland thing, there was a lot of nuance to that. So you can't. At what point did they just start making shit up when they wanted stuff up? Sorry. When they wanted to be friends with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, he did stupid things. He invaded Russia. That made no sense.
He had people telling him, if you invade Russia, and if you invade Poland, England is going to declare war. That's what they were telling a lot of his people.
Yes.
And they did. And then he didn't. He was like, what? And next thing you know, he's in this war. It's a good docuseries. And I will say this, just like with every book, you got to read the footnotes, and every docuseries, I'm sure, has got their own spin. The whole point, and that's why I love doing live shows with you, because I can bring something up and we are 5,000 words down a rabbit hole. I just thought of you because how prominent propaganda was.
The reason I think this is so important is that they learned their propaganda techniques from England and the US. And if you look at what's happening right now in this country, when you look at false flag events like the Reichstag, that stuff happens here. You think when you watch those documentaries that are called evil, and every single thing they do is evil and obviously wrong by your standards today, and you look at that, it is so obvious to you that if it was happening in your country, you would never fall for it. That's why I object to those really one-sided things. Not that I don't think the Nazis are evil, but that you have to look at it and say, how did this happen? Were all the people in Germany evil? Were they stupid?
No.
Were they prejudiced? Were they educated in a way that made them susceptible to authoritarianism? Because that's what I think the number one problem was. A very good friend of mine is a Jewish German who still lives there. And he said his family was always there. And he said before that, they were one of the most progressive countries. They were one of the least anti-Semitic countries. That's what he tells me. He's a very well-educated guy. And I feel like, how did it happen then? How did it happen? And you need to see that, Violet, you must have basic standards and you must adhere to them. You must not let people scare you about the other, or the other is a bug, or the other is a race, whatever the other is. The other is a terrorist, the other is other. And then you say, well, in order to do that, they're already contact tracing the protesters from Minneapolis.
Well,
for political reasons, not health reasons. So
we've talked about
this is what's happening.
We've talked about you got to have a touchstone in life. In life, when I talk to businesses, what is your touchstone? What are your key principles? When you're raising a family, what are our key principles as a family? What does that mean? Well, that means, son, that when something happens in life, you run back and you touch this thing. Yeah. You go back to it and go, okay, does this decision match up with what we've learned to do as a family? And if it doesn't, you try your best not to do those things. As our country, we have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. And I know, because I've talked to you enough, that we're stepping all over those. Have you ever heard of a guy named Jordan Peterson?
Oh, yes. Where is he now?
Well, I think he's in rehab. I think he.
Well, but the story is nuts. He went to Russia and had a medically induced coma to get off Xanax, and he used to speak out against drug abuse. That guy, I'd be interested to hear what he says right now. And he has been silent for months.
He has a great take on how Germany became Germany. He wrote a book about it, how the brown shirts,
they became Nazis.
Yeah. He goes, the problem with, he goes, good men always look at that and go, I would never.
Right.
He goes, do you think that every man that was there were evil men? He goes, at some point they loved their kids, they were husbands, they were community leaders, they were business owners.
Yeah, just too many of them to just all be evil.
Well, and he talks about that. He goes, how do you take a mindset of a people and slowly turn it to where eventually they're looking at each other? And this documentary series I'm watching, this other one has a guy that he killed people. He was part of and he kept saying things like, Well, once they were shot, I tried to end it quickly so they wouldn't suffer because I didn't want them to suffer. And I kept thinking, he's justifying
And a lot of
what
that
he
stuff
did.
came out of the eugenics era. And that's when you get people like our Billionaires Boys Club who want population control as their number one thing, or they put vaccines out that may be quite damaging, but they're told that it's for the good of society. I mean, I just read Ted Kaczynski's biography, and it opens with the line, from Hitler to Kaczynski, everyone who's ever done atrocities against innocent strangers has said it's for the greater good. And I would include Bill Gates in that pile. But there's another book, really interesting book, Conjuring Hitler by Guido Preparata. And it talks about how England wanted to cultivate a dysfunctional subculture that would destroy the German people, but keep the German infrastructure and the money intact and flowing. And through all the wars, the money did not stop flowing. It's a very interesting book. And I think that's what we have. We have enhancement of dysfunctional subcultures here while we put the mechanisms in place to make sure the money keeps flowing.
And
that's what Event 201 was about.
I wish my buddy Eric Buchanan, who was joined us last week, I wish he could be here today. I think he's traveling today. He is the number one history guy I know. He is, again, he was a military, aviator, very well educated attorney, great guy. But with these kind of conversations right now, we're having him and my other buddy Tim Kelly. I'm going to tell them we're going to talk about this next week and see what they do. I bet they'll come back on. We should do a whole podcast on it. I think it would be fun.
Then I'm going to have to do some homework.
No, never mind. No, you do enough homework.
Off the cuff, I can tell you what my impressions are. And I mean, I'm happy to talk about that. But if it's going to be you know about this, if it's going to be a history podcast and somebody knows the history, that's fine. I do have about 1 million books on that particular subject. I could probably.
You did just question my, you did just question my, have you source checked your docuseries? I'm like, no, it's just a docuseries. I'm watching.
No, it's not the source checking. It's making the issue so simplistic that you cannot learn the lessons you need to keep it from happening again. And they do that on purpose because they don't want you to really understand how people get sucked into this stuff.
But I think
you got to read books to learn that stuff.
Yeah. That's part I agree with. I love reading books. But we've also talked about this too. If you make things so complicated that you can't be explained, that's also another trick. In other words, they make things so complicated, we can't find the data, we can't find the truth, and we eventually just go,
I agree.
Well, they're saying this and they're saying this. Screw it. I got a shift from 3 to 10 tonight. I can't worry about it. Seriously, that's what people happen.
Yeah.
We've got tweets before. I want to get into your tweets.
Go for it.
Now that you said it that way,
all yours.
That's just not true. Hey, so you sent me one. You ready for this? Are you ready? Because you look like you're typing.
Yeah, because people sent me a bunch of questions for you.
I'm not answering. Hey, this is my interview of you. I'm not on the hot seat.
All right.
No, I'm just kidding. Come on, we're playing. If I can answer them, I'll answer them.
Okay. If I can find them, I'll ask them.
Hey, look what I'm wearing for you. Look.
Oh, yay. Oh, my gosh.
Ireland
I know
rugby.
People don't realize that I'm Irish. Irish is Patty's pig.
I love Ireland. I'm mostly 70%. We did the lineage, and we're like 69% Irish and Scottish, and then my uncle sent me all this other stuff, and I just stopped. I'm like, the rest of me is just mutt like everybody else.
I did my lineage too. Can you imagine? I sent my DNA to Sergey Brin's wife. That's insane.
Well, my uncle did. I didn't send him any DNA. I'm not sending mine. I never understood that. Everybody.
I'm an idiot. What a moron.
Everybody's like, why are we letting them collect our data? Why do we and then we're sending them our spit that they can put in any crime scene from this point forward. Monica Perez.
Well, I don't expect to be. They could put it on it. Don't make any suggestions, buddy.
They can do anything they want now. They can just take a picture of your DNA and guess what? You're in Ireland.
Then why aren't you an anarcho-capitalist like I am?
I'm not as smart as you. Somebody's got to represent just the common, the common unsilent majority, the unsilent majority. So are you ready for your first tweet?
I am. Can you do it while I find the thing?
Well, I can talk. I can ask the question.
Talk to me.
You sent me You sent me a tweet about the Ohio Governor DeWine suppresses COVID data. Is it data? Do you say data or data?
Data is definitely the guy on Star Trek. Give me the data. I say data.
I do. I say data too. Well, it was the tweet you sent me. So I'm reading your tweet back to you.
Okay. And what did it say? I was distracted. I told you I was doing something else. What do you want from me?
You're listening is key in a relationship, Monica.
Sorry.
It's okay.
Sorry.
The governor.
Can you edit that out or?
No, we're just leaving that in there. I want everybody to see the fact that I was ignored.
I never edit. I don't even know how to edit.
Ohio Governor DeWine suppresses COVID data. That's the tweet you sent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So there was a TV station in Ohio that really exposed that it was, I believe it was the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the head of the health, whatever. They understood that COVID wasn't as bad as it was had been advertised as. It wasn't as infectious or deadly. They had also looked at, my rally cry from the very beginning has been, I want good data and I want to see the cost benefit analysis that the government's using, even outside of the fact that they don't have the authority, they don't have emergency power outside their power, that I wanted to see the cost benefit analysis and the data they were using. And apparently they did the cost benefit analysis, including looking at being quarantined for 2 weeks with SARS and the financial devastation of 2008. They looked at how that affected people's health, psyche, well-being, suicide, death rate, all that kind of stuff. And from what it looks like to me, it was clear from the beginning that the policies were ill-advised, not justified, and they did it anyway. And I suspect that's true everywhere. And as it was coming out in Ohio, of course, it wasn't getting as much play as I would have liked. Then all of a sudden, Ohio, for one brief moment, has 300 protesters trying to burn down the Capitol. And my guess is that they'll reinstate the lockdown because of all this. They'll blame either the Black Lives Matter or the anarchists or whoever's doing this lockdown. They're re-upping on the lockdown, even though people are sick of it and they're using it for other purposes. Maybe, I don't know.
It's all to change how we're going to do the voting and elections come November.
Well, there's a lot of stuff, but
I think that's one of the main reasons.
I'm not totally objecting to mail-in voting, but it just takes more than a month.
I am.
Why?
I am. Fraud. Why? It's horrible. It's terrible. They're going to send it to everybody that lives at an address that may not even be registered.
You have to.
But they're not going to. You know that.
Yes, and that's what I say. You can't implement it in a couple of months. The voting thing is always the devil's in the details, because electronic voting machines, you can just flip a switch. The voting system in Georgia, without the mail-in thing, it was crooked under Kemp as Secretary of State, and it's going to be even more crooked after a very expensive change in. They're going to have an unauditable system in Georgia. Nothing's worse than that.
Hey,
you can just flip a switch.
Did you know on the New York Times last week, Chattanooga, where I live, the city I live, it's right outside my window, was rated 4th for the hot spots over the next 30 days for the COVID-19. Right now we have.
Do you know an unusually high number of people who are very sick? Well, an unusually high number of people who are very sick?
I've got family members that are nurses, and the hospital beds they've got 17 people in ICU.
Do they have ventilators?
Now that part I don't know. When I say 17 in their hospital, she works at, they only have 5.
This is what I think they're doing. You come in, you freak out, you're sick, and they have changed the protocols for the ventilators. They jam ventilators on you, and it's pretty close to 100% death rate once they do that. So I think that protocols and manipulation policies could account for everything we're being told.
I'm just saying right now, if I get sick, you reach out to somebody I know and tell them not to put me on a ventilator. Just telling you right now.
Dude, you should have a do not ventilate. Do not ventilate.
I'm saying it right now publicly.
Okay.
Yeah, just don't. Put me on my stomach. Maybe if you get an
oxygen tank, all they can really do for you in the hospital, I think, for a virus is oxygen and fluids. So clearly you're hydrating.
I'm going through these like you will not believe.
Yeah, but make sure you have your electrolytes, because you can get dehydrated from too much water if you don't balance with electrolytes. And maybe you should get an oxygen tank.
Nutrition talk and health talk with Monica Perez.
Oh, no, I want to talk to your guy.
Yeah. I've got a couple people you need to talk to. Ed Jones would be phenomenal. He would be. He's stupid. Stupid smart. All right. Let's go to your next tweet, because I don't think you found anything from. Did you find any questions from me?
Oh, yeah, I found them.
Are they good? Are they questions that's going to stump me? Because if it's to make Clint look stupid, I've spent 52 years looking stupid. I don't need help with that.
Oh, well, I got a comment. All right, I'll skip all the ones that say.
Well, no. Say what?
In your face, Clint.
Oh, this is supposed to be in my face.
Oh, someone wants you to be this a guy who Float Official is a kind of Twitter competitor, and he wants you on his stream.
Now, what does he do? I didn't understand.
I
wasn't listening to you.
Yeah, no, it's someone on Float. I believe it's the official Mark Watson, although this isn't that Twitter account. He wants you to put your stuff on Float. So,
okay, sure. I'll have to look it up.
I don't use Facebook. How can I watch? Can't wait. YouTube. I just set my alarm. And last week's show was great. I loved how every excuse for not balancing the budget led to checkmate by you. I think he meant me.
Yeah, of course he meant you. Of course he
I
meant
thought they
you.
were going to give you questions, but it was
it's just making me feel,
Comments, not questions.
That's good. Comments are good, though. We like comments. It means people are paying attention. And I don't ever feel like it. Listen, the whole point of conversation isn't to be right or wrong. It's to learn or to at least understand what the differences are. Sometimes I'm wrong, but a lot of times I let you think you're right, and I don't really think you're right. So let's go to this.
Well, that's where the rubber hits the road, bro. That's where we should be talking.
Let's go to the second tweet you sent me. U.S. visitors to disclose their social media info. You sent me that tweet. Oh,
yeah. I could not believe
Look how excited you get.
It was the craziest thing. There was a rule in 2019 that Trump put through that I think 14 million people apply for visas every year in the United States, and they have to give 5 years of unmasked social media data for 20 different platforms. So they will check 5 years of your social media posts on Alibaba, Facebook. You have to tell them all of your aliases. I understand why they're doing it, because they're worried about terrorists, supposedly. But they always say, see, this is the thing. This is the difference between you and me. They create the terrorists so that they can put these plans in. So you have to wonder what they really want to do, like contact tracing. It's not even fully implemented, and it's already being used for
you to say they create, this is the other issue is there's no.
Osama bin Laden worked for the CIA. That is a proven fact.
Okay, but
Hillary Clinton read it into the congressional record that the Mujahideen was a CIA
absolutes.
Project.
You can't deal in absolutes all the time. You just in life, there's no absolute. You can't.
What
say
I said is true. They create. I didn't say every terrorist. I said they create terrorists to do this, and they do.
And how about the ones they don't create?
The ones they create them.
So technically speaking,
there was a woman arrested today. She was sentenced today for sending cell phones she thought to ISIS. First thing I thought, Fort Myers, Florida, I think. First thing I thought was, she definitely didn't do that. Some FBI guy suggested she do it. She did what he said, and now she's going to jail. And you know what? I looked up the story, and that's exactly what happened. That's what happens.
Whoa.
Judge Knapp and the New York Times both reported.
Did you just do
Judge Knapp in the New York Times both said 95% of all terrorist busts are.
I don't give a shit what you say now. I just want to see you do more of that. I like that.
You are cussing.
Hey, listen, if everybody knew what I stopped her from saying, how she wanted to start the show today, y'all would be thanking me, because she wanted to start
expressing myself.
Hey, an executive order preventing online censorship. That's Trump.
The executive order that everybody's talking about. I think that thing went off the rocket.
Oh, did it?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not.
Those poor guys, dude.
I'm focusing on you.
Sorry, you know what? I didn't turn my phone over, and I knew that was a breaking story, but it was a breaking story. Don't you want to have a breaking story?
Sure.
Whatever.
Yeah.
So, the executive order. This was another thing that was in the USMCA. They're trying to get rid of Section 230, which is it's the internet rules from the 1996 Decency Act, something like that. And the way it works is they wanted the internet to be robust. This is the story. So they gave internet platforms protection from liability for stuff that's published by users on the platform. But they also allowed them to go in and censor and suppress porn and stuff like that. It's a decency thing. So they have the right to push that stuff down, but they don't have the obligation to monitor everybody and control it. Mm-hmm. And the reason was because they wanted upstarts. And even Attorney General Barr said, well, that was so the startups would have a chance, but now they're titans and they don't need that chance anymore. But of course the lie is in what he said, which is there will be no more startups. That's what he's saying. So that just locks in Twitter. Gab will suffer for this.
Okay.
BitChute will go out of business. So
because
what
of the censorship.
Trump is doing, Trump said, we want to remove their liability protection because it was supposed to be used in a neutral way, and they're not using it in a neutral way. So he wants to bring in a fairness doctrine from the right. He wants to set up a board that will evaluate whether these guys are biased or not. But the fact is, once you set up that liability, YouTube already has 10,000 censors in place, human beings, at least. BitChute, which is the competitor for YouTube, the uncensored competitor, has probably none. And they will go out of business because Trump will go over there and say, which he's going over to Gab, he'll say something obnoxious. Some idiot who's probably a government agent will go do something stupid. Gab will get sued and go out of business just like Gawker. And BitChute will do the same thing. They'll get trolled to death in short order. And it's because of this executive order. The
two things, and I'll let you explain the difference to me. But there's a warning. I'll give a warning out that I agree with you on, and then I'll ask you this question because I thought there was a difference in how they were looked at. All this sounds great. If you're on a certain side of this conversation, it all sounds great when it's your team. It all sounds great when you're going, absolutely, yes, yes, yes. What you have to think about is when things like this are put into place, though, they're very fluid. The same people don't sit there forever. The people in charge change. Everything can change. And you have to, in my opinion, you have to ask yourself the question of, I'm happy now. If it was reversed, though, what is the damage that could be done? And is that really what I want, is this power, this pendulum that can not just swing a little bit, it swings this huge, there's a vast difference in the ends. And
that's what the 10th Amendment is for.
But platform and publisher, right? Isn't that the difference in the social media platforms? If you're a platform, then you really don't have an obligation to, people can say what they want. If you become a publisher where you edit, control, and start allowing and picking and choosing, that's when the liability comes in. Isn't that correct?
I think that's the distinction that they've always drawn. And I think what they're saying, and you could take that event to one thing, which presaged the COVID. And one of the guys, the Henry Schein, which is a healthcare company, but they were brainstorming on how to control the information. And he said, the days of social media suggesting that they are just neutral are over. They need to actively curate information to aid us in our agenda.
So where do you come down at it? Do you think they're biased right now? And do they have a certain leaning towards a certain way?
Here's the thing.
I mean, how do you fix it?
I think these huge ones were promoted, were fostered by the government at the expense of competitors. So to me, it's a quasi-governmental entity. It's a kind of a sister of the Defense Department. So Google was for sure. Not propaganda. Google was created by the NSA and DARPA and all that for the purpose of, there's a great Quartz article about it, for the purpose of getting the private capital through a profitable enterprise to give the surveillance agencies access to your searches because they're so deeply psychologically probing. It's not just Facebook, which used to be called LifeLog when the government ran it. And then the day LifeLog stopped, Facebook emerged, supposedly private, but that's a long story. But I would say that these are government platforms designed to corral speech from the public square. And now that the First Amendment's been abandoned, abolished, then we have to go here. And it should have the same free speech protections that the actual public square outside the Capitol in Chattanooga has.
So my
Because
question,
it's a government entity.
my question is, when Trump tweets something, this is kind of a simple question. Does Twitter, in your mind, have the right to put that little thing over it saying this is not true, delete or exit, or should they leave it up?
I think Gab should and Twitter shouldn't, because I think Gab is private and I think Twitter is an arm of the government. I think Twitter actually, and I hate focusing on Trump because it has nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with me.
I understand, but you have to have a point of the conversation that you can circle around and go, okay, that's what
they
we're
make it the hardest one to argue.
Right.
Alex Jones and Trump, the hardest ones to argue. But I'm the one who gets suppressed. But neither of those guys are losing their platforms, no matter what Twitter does to them. You're going to hear what they think. Period.
Because
but
you don't hear what I
think. Yeah, you don't hear what I think because I get deplatformed.
You can
in a meaningful way.
You can call me and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear it.
One person at a time.
Yeah, I'll call Bob and say, Bob, Monica said,
you wouldn't
and then Bob.
Believe it.
Yeah. Hey, there's a Tennessee farm where all the employees tested COVID positive.
I saw that. Yeah.
You know what?
Why did you tell me about that?
40. Yeah. I don't know a lot about it. I just came out the headlines. It's 40 minutes from my house north of here.
Yes. So I suspect that there is a cascade of essential things that are going to get interrupted, starting with meat and animal products. Then it's going to move to farms. And I think ultimately it will be energy. We're going to have blackouts. Well, but I thought that from the beginning.
Okay, so you got to take it. We're number 4 on the New York Times list of hot spots. That farm is about 40 minutes from here. We also have massive poultry plants here, 2 and 3 of the biggest around. I mean, it's some of the biggest brand names have one of their headquarters here. There's positive testing there that's happened in the newspaper.
How skilled?
So it's coming out.
How skilled is that labor in a poultry factory?
I'm assuming there's all levels. I'm assuming they have a lot of hourly.
If you could get 1,000 people who are absolutely negative, test them every day. They can't go in, just complete. I'll go and just have them package the meat. I bet I could figure it out in a day.
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you.
They're closing the factories because they can't find 1,000 people.
No, I don't think they're closing them.
They are closing some of them.
Yeah,
they're
killing
animals. You know that.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is in the headlines I was talking
breaking
about.
Breaking eggs.
Well, they put them in, and then they spit them out, and then they put them in the carton.
They're making omelets.
Hey, another tweet from your tweets. Are you ready? Libya heats up. That's all you sent me. Libya heats up. And by the way, do you have time for me? We're running on an hour. Are you good with this?
I have time.
Okay.
I
know your air conditioner.
But I'll have some air if I pass out.
If you start melting.
Yes.
All right. Libya heats up. What was that?
So.
Let me pull it up.
Libya. Yeah. No. I know it is. It's Russia is sending. I think the reason that we stopped the open skies thing or wherever we're escalating with Russia, I think it's over Libya, which we destroyed on purpose. There's a really famous, it's probably in that tweet, a really famous 4 or 5 minute conversation between Saif al-Islam Gaddafi, the Gaddafi son who went to the London School of Economics, hung out with the Rothschilds, whatever, calling Dennis Kucinich when he was a congressman and saying, there is something crazy going on here. Like 1,000 foreigners came in. They're beheading people. They're taking videos of it. This is nuts. We want you to come in, check it out. I know we can trust you. America would never do this. There was other reports at that time. I followed it closely where the Gaddafi sent a message to the generals, to Hillary, who was Secretary of State, saying, I will step down. As long as you can put any government you want in this place, just don't overthrow the government without someone to put it in, because we've got these really horrible factions. And she wouldn't even take the call. So then you had them destroy infrastructure. Libya is something we destroyed on purpose, and it's now an absolute mess. And it's a what to watch out for. Russia's going in, Turkey's going in. This is it's a real problem. And it's unjust.
I don't like it when you make everything our fault. If you could stop doing that, I would make me
blame it on Hillary. You like that?
Yes,
that's right up your alley.
Absolutely.
It was Hillary's fault. 100% Hillary and Obama. Those are the guys who did it. They scalped him, I think. Gaddafi. Didn't you ever see her cackle?
Yeah.
We came.
We saw. Yes.
And he died. Ugh, she's disgusting.
Hey, infrastructure, job programs. Yay. Just like FDR put in place.
Exactly. Governor Cuomo, the arch enemy of Donald Trump, is going to meet with him about.
Isn't he the one that put all the seniors back in nursing homes?
Yeah, he's an idiot who.
Started,
so he's a guy who's heavily invested in COVID panic, and his policies resulted in the worst COVID experience in this country. So I posit that it is possible that a truly unbiased analysis of the numbers might show what it looks like Ohio is showing, that their policies made things worse across the board. But at the same time that Trump is coming out with how we need a $2 trillion infrastructure package, the guy who runs New York is going to meet with him about how to spend that in New York, and not even to make things better, which is just disgusting to put any federal money into New York, which they can do everything themselves. Stop the state and local tax. State and local taxes are not tax deductible. So now New York has a right to ask the feds for the money because they can't raise their taxes. It's not cool. So Cuomo is actually saying it's a way to create jobs. And of course, and Trump said the same thing. It's a fucking jobs program.
Hey,
like the drug war.
Franny, Monica said a bad word.
Oh,
Monica said a bad word.
Franny would never say anything against me. She's there to keep you in line.
She just propaganda for Monica. Is that what she does? She just
she's my bodyguard.
It's okay. She can still say Monica said a wordy dirt. All right. Yes. Okay. So the infrastructure program, you tweeted that out, and I'm waiting for Franny to jump in, but it looks like Clint's the only one that's going to get his ass kicked today.
She must have run to the bathroom.
All right. So the next tweet, the fourth industrial revolution from World Economic Forum, redefining what it means to be a human. What is that?
I know.
I don't understand. Explain.
Crazy. They were saying it's called the Fourth Industrial Revolution. I'd seen this article in 2016, and I didn't really know what to make of it. And then since then, I heard a couple of things that I'm starting to piece it together. I heard one person say the 20th century had a revolution in chemistry. Thanks, Fran. She had an important comment.
Hold on a second. Let's put it up. I see it. There we go.
Thank you. It's a little humid. So, see, she wasn't going to bust me from a bad word. Exactly. Clint said a bad word, and Monica's hair looks good.
Let's just put them all over.
Yes, I want that. I want a do not ventilate tattoo instead of a vax tat.
Get them both. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't want a vax tat. I don't want a vax. So, the fourth industrial revolution, they said that they remade the world basically with chemistry in the 20th century. She is biased. In the 21st century, they're going to do it with biology. And the fourth industrial revolution says we're going to no longer look at mechanistic reactions. We're going to look at biological functionality. We are going to merge the biological sphere with the technological sphere. We're going to blur the lines between the physical, the biological, and the technological. And they show guys with using their brains to operate their prosthetics, which this was 4 years ago. It's a no-brainer now. And they want to use biomass as energy, which is, I think, what we're doing with... Isn't that what they say oil is?
Yeah, it's biomass. AI.
I don't believe that, but
my son told me the other day that he's getting into this stuff at 21. He's like, eventually, Dad, we're just going to download our brains and we'll just never die. And I went, I don't think we are our brains.
Not us.
Oh, no.
Anyway,
no, I'm dead. He might be able to.
No, even if they could ever do that, which I totally agree with you is not possible because consciousness is not of this dimension. But it's not for us. It's for them. And they are the ones behind it. And they are, in this case, the World Economic Forum, which is where they get into it in great length. And that's what they want to do. They even talk about how they want all learning to come out of YouTube. So that's where we're headed right now. And
do you know, because I do business seminars all the time, everybody knows the number one search engine in the world is Google. Do you know what the number two search engine in the world is?
I hope it's DuckDuckGo.
It's YouTube. The number two search engine. Do you know who owns YouTube?
Google.
What do you think about that?
Somebody told me that YouTube was a great search engine. That I didn't
realize great, but it's also owned by by Google. So they have the majority.
Very interesting.
Oh yeah, the vast majority of things that you search for, whether it's on YouTube or Google, or they got it. And so that's where our brains are going.
23andMe is owned by, or was founded by, Sergey Brin, who founded Google, his wife. And Sergey Brin and Mark Zuckerberg went to a Johns Hopkins Center for Talented Youth summer program when they were teens. And it wasn't a place to cultivate talented youth. It was a place to study them. So they're like super geniuses.
I went to a camp like that.
Did you? How'd it work out?
Me too.
Did they study you?
They sent me home early. Hey, the EU says the claims. Let me see if I can find this. The EU officials claim U.S. tech is imposing standards on COVID-19 apps, and I don't know explain to me what that means.
So they are trying to. Everybody wants to do contact tracing, allegedly. The EU wants it to be temporary, voluntary, private, limited, and Apple and Google are not. I've heard this accusation before. Supposedly, Apple and Google, who are working on it, won't accommodate governments to make it like that. It's going to be how it's going to be, and it's going to be for us. And I was mentioning this on my show that Israel overnight put contact tracing and turned it on literally overnight because they do it anyway. And that's what we're doing. We're starting to do that. That's what we're doing with these. Maybe we're just rolling it out. That's what I always thought facial recognition was for, that the cop cams were there to see the faces of all the people to protest. Now they have contact tracing. How are they implementing? I know, it's amazing because, I won't download my new iOS. My phone keeps wanting me to, but somebody sent me a screenshot of the fine print that said it's going to be contact tracer friendly. And I don't, and already if you look, where's my phone been? You can find it already. You can find it already on your phone.
I wonder how bad our life would be if we seriously got rid of just Clint Powell got rid of his cell phone, had a landline and an email system, and just said, hey, everybody, now when I'm at home, I'll be on the internet, I'll do my thing, I'm at work. But when I leave my house, you are not going to find me. I don't want my kids to have that though, because I want to be able to contact trace them, make sure they're okay.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Me too. I don't know. I mean, if they're looking for this Real ID 2020 thing where everybody on earth, including refugees, has a ID that spans the digital and the physical world. So the only thing I can think of that is that it's a chip. And that's from a vaccination. That's from Gavi, which is the Vaccination Council, and Bill Gates and somebody else, probably Johns Hopkins. But
there's a comment from Freddie up there.
Accenture.
Hey, real quick, would you ever want to do a vaccination show? Because I've got people that would that interest you.
I would, but I'm not really. No, I'm not really an expert on it. I can tell you who to do it with. I can tell you that.
I would love to do a vaccine.
David Crow, Andrew Kaufman, Dr. Tenpenny. She's great.
I would love to do that. I posted something about would you take a vaccine about 8 months ago, and I had 160 comments, and I had private messages from doctors getting on to me, and then people. It was because they were like, I can't believe that a lot of people will or won't. It was 50-50, and the doctor that reached out to me was like, man, people just don't understand how that vaccinations are a must, and so I was like, wow,
that's ridiculous.
All right, we got a comment up there if you want to read it.
Outrageous. Vaccines are not a must. That's outrageous.
Franny made a comment.
Contact traced when out eating. They just took phone number and name, no verification though. Interesting.
So when they say they, I'm assuming the restaurant?
I think that's what she's saying.
Yeah. So I bought a burner phone. It's
wow.
There you
go.
Wow,
that's interesting.
That is.
I wonder if they won't allow that, the way you can't evade or avoid. You can avoid taxes, but you can't evade taxes. I wonder if they'll make this mandatory. The way they're changing the driver's licenses, they're saying you're not going to be able to fly around domestically within this country without a Real ID driver's license or a U.S. passport.
What do you mean a Real ID driver's license? Most people have to have that anyway, don't they?
Not a driver's license, a Real ID driver's license. So there's one or two states that won't put the chip in the driver's license, like Mississippi or something, and people in that state will not be able to get on a plane without a passport, which is totally unconstitutional.
This is how out of it I am. I didn't know they put chips in driver's license.
Well, I don't know. it's called it's the real driver's license, whatever it is. It was supposed to be mandatory by October 2020, but they pushed it out to 2021. And probably because they want more data in it. They probably want to be able to put vaccine information in it so that you can't get on a plane if you haven't had a vaccine.
That's what I think is going to happen. And or they put it in your wrist, or the good number on your
So I'll just
forehead.
have to move to Hawaii and get it over with.
Just move to Ireland. You'll be all right. Hey, so you have one more tweet, and then what was I going to ask you? There was something else I was going to ask you before we did this one tweet, and I cannot remember what it was. Dadgummit, that frustrates me. Oh, I want to say this again. What did you do with your glass? Why'd you take your
I
glass?
can't see without them. I was thinking maybe it's better to take them off, but I can't see without them.
I'll say it again. I've said it almost every week. I just want to eventually be right about something. I think there is this much chance that Joe Biden is the Democratic nominee.
Funny.
0 chance.
Wow, nominee. When is the DNC? Which is always such a weird. You know what a DNC is?
Do not resuscitate. No, just kidding. It's a DNR.
It's like the D and C is like an abortion.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
But the DNC is where they pick the. I don't
think they're gonna. I think they're gonna have a virtual one or something.
Virtual DNC.
Yeah, they're gonna have something weird. Something could happen there. But like I said last time,
or mail-in vote.
I don't think it matters because I think come October they're going to have an emergency calling of the DNC and a new candidate will emerge that doesn't have to do all the debates and the media will just pile in behind them.
That's interesting. Yeah, I'm not convinced that Trump's going to win anymore. Plus, he's going to be 78 almost at the end of his 4th term. Why would he want to do that? He likes to play golf.
Why would he want to do that? I don't ever remember.
He's accomplished his mission.
But I don't ever remember a presidential term this much controversy, this much where again,
that's what he's there for.
Let's take that out. Take that out of your brain.
The masses for 4 years straight.
Thanks to the left-wing media. Absolutely.
And end up with like it'll be what a $5 trillion deficit, $7 trillion deficit. All that fancy footwork. Hey, you're ugly. What? Dude, I love it the way he said she was ugly. 7 trillion what now? Oh, who cares?
When as a country did we stop caring about the deficits? Because he's not the first president to do it.
Well, I mean
I would love to think he created racism, he created the debt, he created deficits. I would love to think he started all that.
This is it, though. This is a complete destruction of our fiat currency. Fine, whatever. But unfortunately, anybody who's
I love how you do
old
that.
enough
I love how you do that.
Retire.
Just destroy the fiat currency. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah, whatever. There should be. Hopefully, everybody listening has a basement full of gold.
I don't have
guns, gold, and a getaway.
Yeah. In
the immortal words of Gerald Celente.
Or I'll just go take their guns and gold.
I hate it when you say that. It makes me think you're immoral. It bothers me. You're going to lose every argument with me if I don't think you have principles.
That's funny. No, first of all, I wouldn't do that. Second of all, I wouldn't need to do that because I have my own stuff here. But no, I would never do that. But I did. But I have told you this story, and it's not immoral, but it's called reality. Back when 2012 was going to happen, and the Mayan calendar was going to run out, and everybody was going to fall off planet Earth. They made movies about it. My kids were young. I'm a younger dad, not younger, too much younger, but I was younger then. And I remember I was talking to my dad. I'm like, if the world does ever go to crap and people start coming through neighborhoods, I said, we're all set here. And I said, but I guess you just, as they come through the door, and my dad says, when you do, let them lay there. And I go, why? He goes, because then when people come by the yard and they see the bodies laying, he goes, they don't come in the yard. And I was like, that's not immoral.
That's fine. I don't think that's immoral. Oh, no. Somebody trespasses.
Especially in
Texas for a long time. The Castle Doctrine would completely solve the immigration problem.
If you come through my front door, I used to say this all the time. We have, we at the time we had 5 pokes, but if you come through my front door, there's Irish guns and a 90-pound dog that would just
Irish dogs. I want an Irish dog.
Irish dog.
Wolfhound is like 140 pounds. I totally want one of those.
Have you ever heard, and I'm going to say it wrong about a dog. Have you ever heard of the Borbal? It's like a 230-pound dog, and it makes me happy. I can't wait. I'm going to get one. 100% just it's intimidation. That's
warmth.
It.
Okay.
Yeah. It'd be good.
I think you could probably live inside it if you needed to.
It's a
You
massive
could eat it. You
200
could
pound
make
dog.
a coat out of it.
A cane corso. All right. Hey, I think we went through all your tweets
Right on.
that you sent me.
I didn't mean to pick them for you, but I felt that you were very busy this week.
It was a crazy week. And we'll do this again next week. Now, so let's just have a moment of transparency. Have you enjoyed the first 3 or 4 of these we've done? Are you having fun on
Yes,
Saturdays?
I really like it. I really like to be able to talk a little more at length about principles and policies and what's going on in a way I can't for daily shows too fast. But I feel like I think you're right. I should maybe pick an amendment or something to actually do some homework for and add some real value.
I think you add value. I think people like our conversations because they're a little different than the ones they might hear you have for years and years. Yeah. But the flip side of it is I think you can do your homework, but you know your amendments. And I have a strange feeling.
Yes, I could do that one.
You could do that easy. If I just said
Section 230 was, I could probably dig into that a little bit more. See, the internet thing.
I think you could release some stuff like that. I think you just could have a 3-minute Monica without Clint. You don't need anybody.
Dude, you couldn't read my tweets. You think I have time to do? You didn't have time to read my tweets. I don't have time to do homework for you.
I was saying you should do it on your own page.
Yes. No, I can't. I really do. You would not believe how zero time I'm actually having extreme anxiety because I need to teach my son who has Down syndrome how to play the guitar, and that's what he needs to do. And I can't really.
Can you play the guitar?
No, it's impossible. But a really nice deacon has been FaceTiming with him, giving him exercises. I don't really know how to do it. Also, his swimming lessons were canceled. I'm thinking, am I supposed to teach him swimming? And he grooms horses. Now my entire world is shut down. I have no help, whatever. And I need to get this kid doing stuff. So I would love to spend all of my time making informative videos because I find intellectual pursuits really interesting. And it was very hard for me to accept having a kid with Down syndrome because I was like, how is that even human? How can I not have a conversation and then I realized that he has this emanating, brilliant, radiant soul, and I need to cultivate it.
That is so cool to hear you say.
Yeah, it's wonderful. He's wonderful. It's exactly what I needed. Exactly.
Isn't that crazy?
In my life. Trustworthy, pure, not intellectual, good, funny. It's fantastic.
I had this conversation. So I did a podcast, and he's a buddy of mine. He was an NFL All-Pro linebacker for the Atlanta Falcons for years in the 80s. His name is Buddy Curry. And he and I talk pretty regular. And we talked yesterday about being a dad. And we talked about the lessons that we learn as parents from our kids and how rubbing up, the like iron sharpens iron. These moments where we teach our kids actually teach us. And I am such a better person for having been the dad to my children than I ever would have been without them. With all the trials and tribulations, a lot of the times when people go, man, you really are good at that, I don't want to go, you ought to thank my kids because they're the ones that crafted this, because I'm such a different person than I was before I became a dad.
Well, Luke is special. He can't, I shouldn't say his name, but he can't really understand sarcasm. He's super humorous, but he can't understand sarcasm. And he doesn't like any kind of heated conversation. You have to actually be kind of classy around him. But one time, did I tell you this I said that somebody made my blood boil? And he was like, what?
Say that again. You froze up. Say it again.
He said, I told him somebody made my blood boil. And he was really worried about me. He was like, your blood is boiling? I mean, how can you live? Your blood is boiling? How could somebody make your blood boil? And then you really have to
very literal.
Be careful. And but I mean, you can't be a jerk. You can't be mean. You can't gossip. Like, he just can't tolerate any of that. It's great.
You mean like a pure soul, like we probably all should be more of?
And he's so trustworthy. What you see is what you get with that kid. Anyway,
that's good,
I could go on and on.
But that's awesome.
The people who have been to my disappearing patron parties on thepropreport.com, if you're a patron, they've met him.
All right, so that's such a good radio segue. Yes. Like you're a professional.
And he's going to wear his werewolf mask to the next one. People
tell everybody how to find you and how they can do that.
They can listen to my daily show anytime they want at Propaganda Report. If you could subscribe on your favorite podcasting feed, that would really help me out. It really helps with the search engines. And then if you want more, there's a lot of content. We have parties. Franny comes to the party. She's going to help me curate the parties because she's such a good friend of the show. Those you have to be a patron for, but you can get in on that. Actually, this is the last day to get in to one of those parties for only $5 a month. If you are a $5 patron of the truth as of May 31st, because it's going up on Monday, you can get into those parties. And that's at patreon.com/propaganda report.
That's awesome.
I knew
Good
you would
job.
like that because it sounds so salesy, but I sell from the heart.
You,
That's
I
actually
believe you.
a courtcy that I'm doing that because I didn't want to raise the price on people. So I'm going to start a new tier.
So thank you, everybody, during the Break podcast or Dayfire podcast or the Single Life podcast. Those are my podcasts. And I started a Patreon of yours last week of course, I'm a little Patreon.
That's okay.
And
You're not going to get into the party though.
Nah, I might up it so I can. And
you're too busy. I know.
You became one on Friday nights. I have no one. I can't leave. I'm a boy in the bubble. And
do
I
you
live by
want us
myself.
to give you a privileged invitation? Maybe you can be a guest.
Maybe we'll see how it goes.
It's super fun.
But thank you for becoming one of mine too. I appreciate
yes,
it.
I'm a patron of During the Break.
All right, let's do it. Let's wrap it up. And I'm sure we'll talk during the week, and we'll bring some
watch this situation develop. We'll have more on that next week too.
Yeah, check it. Just like I said, people who are friends of mine, just go check out their podcast and their content every day.
And if you didn't see this from the beginning or you want to see our old shows, I put them on my YouTube page. So it's youtube.com/Monica Perez Show.
And this one will be up probably today or tomorrow because I'll edit it and send it to you.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
You too.
Get out of there. The air conditioner's off.
Oh, I'm so hot.
Bye, everybody.